Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Brendan Hauser with EVOQ Bike. So I had some great questions about what should I do after my season's over, but before base? And should I just take a break? Should I do some training? What's the best way to get ready for next year? Am I going to burn out? All great questions. If you're a cyclist that's racing, coming off a long race season, August and September, let's say September and October, are actually prime time for sharpening some of those limiters that you just don't have the mental bandwidth or time to dedicate to training while you're focused on all these races during the season. So those specific weaknesses that are holding you back, this is a time to hit some of that before base season starts. And before we even get into this, someone saying, Brendan, the season's over, I just want to go ride. That's totally fine. I often found myself, and I still do, after, let's say, Green Mountain, I go ride a few days, and then I'm thinking, okay, what's next? I don't need a month to just go ride around. When base season comes, there's so much less intensity that for me, that's the time when I'm getting more chill, kind of detrained vibes. I want to take the fitness that I have and apply it to things that are really challenging for me. So who is this video for? This is for the athlete that wants to squeeze a little bit more out of this year, try and find a breakthrough, that extra 1%, get a few more gains. And at the end of the day, no matter what happens, you're going to learn a lot about yourself as an athlete. And really, when you think about it over, let's say, 8 weeks time, it's 10 to 12 really key sessions that you can super focus on. There's no stress from races. You can try and really make this the event. And that's sometimes when you get the breakthrough. So what are you going to take away from this video? We're also going to talk about what should you train. Is it threshold, VO2 max, anaerobic power? And how does this blend with that fun off-season riding? Because that is super important. Like, you can't just be a robot and be in the dojo all the time, or you get to May next year and biking is just not that awesome. Okay, so the number one reason why I would train limiters and why I do this and why I recommend this to athletes and I want to see what works for them. As I mentioned, you have all this in-season fitness in the bank. Your aerobic engine, your neuromuscular sharpness, your threshold's probably still high from months of racing, your VO2 max is humming. That means that when you go to try and hit quality work for these limiters, even if it's in another system, you're not having to come back from a break and build back up general fitness to then attack this. Like, you just lose so much time in there that's really precious. If you take 2 weeks off and just dilly-dally and maybe not ride, then you come back and you're trying to really hit it. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. And this works with the concept of taking a 2-week break. If you do that just to get off the bike, take that later. Take that when the weather starts getting crappier, when it's raining, snowing, whatever it does where you live. So, the other thing to think of is once the deep base phase starts, you're not going to have as much high intensity on your schedule. There's not as much high specificity work that you're doing. So this is your last sort of peak form window to make targeted gains. And again, this is for people that are trying to get the most out of this year. Think of if you had these 8 weeks. Sure, is this going to totally change your 2026? No, not totally. Will it make you a better cyclist? Quite possibly. But think of this year over year over year. What if you did this for the next 5 seasons? If you're in the sport because you really love it and you see yourself doing this for a long time. That 10 blocks of super focused training, 10 blocks, 5 years, 2 blocks, 8 weeks. That's mega. That has a huge gain over time. And then the other piece of this is, now, since you're not doing these things to try and get ready for events, you can experiment a little bit, right? So in race season, you're tapering, you're traveling, you need to stay fresh, you're staying sharp. Like, you maybe went through a build phase, and you went through a race period, then you came back and did a different type of build phase, and you sort of know what works for you or what has worked pretty well for you. We're not used to really experimenting that much when there's races coming up. This is also a time when you're experimenting, like, what is my limit? What happens if I'm normally training 13 hours a week? Like, what happens if I do 15 and 15 and then 13? Am I totally thrashed the third week? Am I maybe riding pretty well? Like, volume, something that you can mess around with. And you're really, I think, I don't know what the term is for this, but something that we don't as athletes, we always think of the physical side. And yeah, we talk about mental sharpness for races, but just the stress of mid-season, of managing your life, trying to get to races, trying to do all the training without the pressure of the upcoming races, focusing on these workouts just seems to be so much easier to execute on. Your race brain that you have, the finite amount of that can go towards the workouts. It's having super quality workouts in September and October can just be incredible. So when we talk about experimentation, I would say try new intervals that we'll talk about in a second. Maybe you notice you have really low cadence. Have you tried doing these intervals with a higher cadence? Where are you at with strength training? I wouldn't just start strength training to affect your intervals, but like think about that for down the road. Excuse me. And if you're making any equipment changes, people are really messing around with crank size right now. Maybe you've been wanting to try a different saddle, mess with your saddle height. I don't know, any of those little things. So what should you focus on? I think threshold and VO2 max, the maximal aerobic power, those two are pretty linked. We'll talk about a couple slight differences, but let's talk about anaerobic power real quickly, because I think this is important that if you are not an anaerobic athlete and you suck at this, I know we've talked about this on the podcast before, that's not something you can just like brush up. You'll hear, oh yeah, just before the race, I do a couple 30-second efforts, couple 60-second efforts, I'm like ready to go. That works over a 3 weeks period of time if you're an anaerobic based athlete. Like there are athletes that we spend very little time because they can just destroy those short, sharp efforts. They need more aerobic training. But if that's not you, that's not something that's going to instantly change. You're really asking your body to produce power in a different way using the glycolytic system. In order to do that, this is a great time because number one, if you do 2, maybe 3 of these workouts a week, it might trash you. That's not something you really want to experiment when you have races coming. It's probably not worth it. The other thing that I know I've mentioned this before, when I was watching a couple friends back in the Nashville days doing these 45-second efforts, it was eye-opening. I realized I was not digging deep enough. I was not going psychotic enough on the bike. Like you wonder how sometimes people can just rip up these short, punchy little climbs. I'm like, whoa, I'm like just not aggressive enough. The first time I did this, I felt like I was going to rip the bars off, which is how you should feel. Like I almost felt like I was going to break the bike, which is so like, wow, I think I'm that strong. Your bike's not going to break. You should be thinking you're going to just liquefy the pedals. You are just going to you're going to rip that crank off. Going crazy on the bike is how you get insanely strong anaerobic power. So utilize that time to say, hey, I really suck at these short punchy things. I really have, if someone snaps and attacks, that's not my strong suit. Like I'm kind of on the back foot. Try and get more explosive. And then you need to think of, okay, what kind of strength work can I do in the off season? Am I doing heavier weights? Do I need to do more plyometrics? Like what is my answer? That's beyond the scope of this video, but figure that out. Next one. Aerobic power. You like my threshold's a little low. My VO2 is not strong. I've got an athlete who's super strong. The really short max aerobic power, 2 minutes, kryptonite. Part of that is mental, being able to dig deep. But threshold, I would just ask a couple easy questions that you can definitely answer. Hey, are you always training constant power? You always doing 4x8 Steven Seiler stuff? Are you always doing the same things that you think is going to help your FTP? Maybe try something different. Have you done more over-unders and maybe some super threshold work? We've talked a bunch about like 6x6 rest reduction. It works for so many athletes. They're like, this is so basic. You're just removing rest from a 6x6 interval, and now I'm setting a 30-minute PR. Does that necessarily mean your threshold increase? No, but it's a great stepping stone to seeing that threshold increase to better 40-minute power, hour power, if that's something that's important to your racing. From a VO2 max standpoint, if you're always doing 30-30s and 40-20s, start trying the constant powers. And it doesn't have to just be 5x5s. Try, like we've talked about, descending duration intervals. I might make a video about this, where you're doing like a 3-minute, a 2-minute, a 1-minute with short rest in between, and then like a bunch of 30-30s. That helps you get used to this constant pressure on the pedals when you're going pretty freaking hard. It's amazing, and this might not resonate with you, but there are a lot of athletes out there who you ask them to do a VO2 max interval for like 30 seconds, and when they've only done 30-30s, they struggle. It is like there's just like dip in power in them in the middle portion where it's almost like they're questioning, can I keep going? I can't say enough. Try something different, and this is the time to do it. And vice versa. If you're always doing 5x5s, go a little bit harder. Do some like anaerobic power. That's in air quotes for people listening to this podcast, but it actually is more of like a VO2 interval because of the cardiac response. And we have VO2 max interval articles out there to get more in depth on that if you're not sure what we're talking about. The other thing that you can do is make a route with a bunch of like 4 to 6 minute KOMs and warm up for 45 minutes and go after 4 or 5 of them. Just as James McCauley said on the podcast, you were going to go so deep going for a KOM. And sure, maybe your pacing's not great because you're going for a KOM, but I bet you are going to still get a ton of high quality VO2 time from chasing those crowns, whether you're going for KOM or QOM. And then talking about mixing this in, that's part of this, the KOMs and the long rides. I would say look at the 8 weeks. Hey, here are my 2 workouts during the week. And then on the weekend, I'm going to do my long ride with my friends. I'm going to get it. Hey, I got this 7-hour ride I want to go do that. Just realize if you do that on a Sunday, Tuesday, you might not be ready for a hard banger session. Move that to Wednesday. And then maybe that week only has 1 midweek really hard ride. That's fine. Like a lot of this you're going to learn so much about yourself if you have focused training. So I'm like so adamant about this, but it's just such a clutch time. And I'm thinking of athletes right now who have actually started this, who have had their racing end at the end of July. And we're like, okay, August, September, what am I doing? Because down here, I have a bunch of people in the Southeast, they start racing in February. So I know I have some people in Rochester, Buffalo, like other colder places where like, I'm not racing in February, I'm racing in April. Just adjust these recommendations based on your climate. So end of the day, if you want to get better, use this time. Just because the season's over, and we always think, maybe I shouldn't say I always used to think, oh, end of season means go to base. You don't want to pivot to base right now because really base, you need 3 months. You need 4 weeks, 4 weeks, 4 weeks. And then you're starting to build phase. I don't see a ton of benefit from drawing out base into 16, 20 weeks. If you're doing a 20-week plan or you're putting something together for yourself for 20 weeks, have a build in there. Like it should be going into your racing, not just base. And as we've said, base is not just zone 2 anymore. We know that's kind of old school. Okay, I think we've covered enough in this video. Good luck with your training and racing. Hit us up if you need help with coaching. If you need a training plan because you don't want to invest the money in full-time one-to-one coaching, check out the plans on our website or on Training Peaks, and share this with a friend who might benefit from hitting some solid focused training before they go into base. Let's get it. Good luck. See ya.